Despite multiple governments from around the world proclaiming the equality of all their citizens, political dynasties continue to be a common feature of modern-day politics, regardless of country or political system. Now, in addition to children or grandchildren following their family members into office, there's also the practice of widow's succession. This is when a politician might leave office or pass away, and their spouse ends up taking their place, with it usually being a wife following her husband into politics. And this has resulted in a series of notable firsts for women over the last century. For example, Elizabeth McCombs, who was elected to her husband's seat after he passed away, became the first ever woman to enter the New Zealand Parliament when she was elected in 1933. And in the UK, the first woman to be elected and take her seat in the House of Commons was Nancy Astor, who succeeded her husband Waldorf in 1919. Now, he didn't pass away. Instead, he had to leave the House of Commons in order to join the House of Lords, because he had inherited the title of Viscount from his father, with both Nancy and Waldorf going on to serve in Parliament for several decades. In Guyana, Janet Jagan succeeded her late husband Chetty to become the first female president of the country. However, unlike other widows, Janet had been involved in Guyanese politics for several decades. She co-founded one of the largest parties in the country, the PPPC, and had previously served as Prime Minister as well as Vice President. Interestingly, both Nancy Astor and Janet Jagan were originally born and raised in the US, with the US having several notable instances of widow succession. For example, Nellie Ross became the first female governor in US history when she succeeded her late husband William in 1925. And most notably, before 1976, almost 3/4 of all female senators and 1/2 of all female representatives were widows when they first entered the US Congress. It all started with May Nolan in 1923 and continues to the present day with Doris Matsui and Julia Letlow, with all three of these women succeeding their late husbands. With the most prominent politician to be a widow possibly being Margaret Chase Smith. She was first elected to the House of Representatives after her husband Clyde passed away in 1940. She would then go on to be elected to the Senate, becoming the first woman to ever serve in both the houses of Congress. In addition to this, she was a strong critic of Joseph McCarthy, participated in the first election where the two major candidates were women, and even tried to get the Republican Party's nomination for president in 1964. Smith eventually left politics after nearly 33 years in government, when she lost her re-election campaign during the early 1970s. And most notably, Maryland's 6th Congressional District had at least 3 notable instances of spousal succession. William D. Byron held the seat from 1939 to 1941, and when he passed away, he was succeeded by his wife, Catherine. And then their son, Goodloe Byron, ended up being elected in the 1970s. And when he passed away, he was succeeded by his wife, Beverly, who ended up serving from 1979 to 1993. And more recently, John Delaney held this seat from 2013 to 2019, when he left office to unsuccessfully run for president in the 2020 election. A few years later, his wife, April McLean Delaney, ended up being elected and eventually took office in 2025. There's also the notable case of the Dingell family. Debbie Dingell succeeded her husband John in 2015, with John Dingell Jr. notably having served in Congress for 60 straight years before he retired. He was first elected in 1955 to replace his father, and since John Dingell Sr. was first elected in 1933, this means there has been a member of the Dingell family in Congress for almost the past 100 years straight. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time. If you'd like to have early access and give feedback on this type of content, please consider joining the Patreon. And as always, thanks to my patrons on Troy and DC. Thank you so much for the support you have given me so far.